Okay, let me try that again. Welcome again to Bethea'S Byte Reloaded. Ernest Bethea, the last outlaw here. So good to have you aboard. I'm suited for a reason. Th- it must be something going on that I'm wearing my suit this evening. I am setting up stories with trigger warnings all pretty much all night long. So as you see at the bottom, I have my the trigger warning for you because I'm trying to protect your mental health, and I know at least a couple of stories is gonna be doing is gonna be triggering to your mental and emotional health. We'll talk about that in just a moment. Oh, let me go right into the chat first. Who's hollering at me? Soul Shine. Good to have you aboard, Soul Shine for Jesus. How you doing? We are doing just fine. Thank you so much. I appreciate the love. All right. Before we even get into the stories this evening, I want to I always want to do these missing persons reports. So I ask you wholeheartedly, take a look at the left side of, or better yet, let me take myself out of the shot and let's go ahead and let's get the show on the road. All right. Said I got a lot of stories to cover, and a couple of them will contain a trigger warning. As you can see by my trigger warning scrolling across the bottom of your screen, I am preparing myself ahead of time. But in case you don't know which story is gonna be which, I have a little something prepared for you. Listen carefully. That means that means if I hit that, I'm on one of those stories that contains a trigger warning. And Soul Shine for Jesus says I'm good now. Thanks for the alert. All right. If you're ready and I'm ready, let's get down to business. First off, we're going to start off with a verdict watch from earlier this week in the case of South Carolina versus William Bud Ackerman. This is also called the jealous husband murder trial. Child in that movie. Maybe I can fix that from here. I'll see. That's probably why. Alright, this should help. Okay. William Bud Ackerman. He's accused of killing the man that his wife started dating after she left him. Alright. Alright, so here's what I can do before we get to what happened. A South Carolina man was found guilty in the death of the man dating his soon-to-be ex-wife. William Bud Ackerman Jr. was convicted of murdering Kenneth Davis McClendon, who died after he was hit by a car following the jury's verdict. I don't want to spoil that part. All right, yet let me move a little bit further, saying that McClendon was found outside of his vehicle at an intersection in Greenwood at approximately 1:30 a.m. on May 7, 2023. According to testimony, McClendon had been involved in an altercation with Ackerman before he was struck by a vehicle. So you already know that Ackerman was found guilty in this case. So now we're going to take you to the courtroom and the sentencing by the judge. Okay, here we go.
After the victim impact statements were delivered in the jealous husband murder trial, it was time for the sentencing. Let's listen to Judge Donald Harper.
What a tragedy. What an absolute tragedy. To one set of family and friends, and now another set of family and friends. I've never been able to understand why people do what they do. And I wish, and I see Solicitor Stumbo in the back, he's tried many cases with me, and he's heard me say this many times in sentencing. I truly and sincerely wish that I could wave a magic wand, which of course I can't do, but wave a magic wand and make this all go away. That it never happened. That Mr. Ackerman, Mr. McClendon were never out on that road, Avid Road, on May 7th of 2023. And that we would not have to be in this courtroom. Of course, I can't do it. But I can tell you this, and I'm saying this to everybody in the courtroom, family and friends, McClendon, family and friends of Ackerman. Before I came out here, I prayed for you. I prayed for you. And I pray that everybody on both sides would experience some peace, some comfort, and for God's strength to be with you. I can't imagine losing a child. I almost lost mine a little over a year ago. working with the local utility company, and he fell 20 feet out of a bucket and broke his back. By the grace of God, he is back working. I just can't imagine losing him in that accident. And I never want to experience, ever, losing anybody that's close to me who I dearly love like you have. And I never want to experience what you are going to be experiencing, having a son live at the Department of Corrections. I've always had this rule. When a jury comes back with a verdict, regardless of the amount of minutes of deliberation, I accept that verdict 100%. I don't question it. I don't try to second guess why the jury did what they did. I accept it. And I accept this. And I accept their finding that you, Mr. Ackerman, intentionally killed Davis McClendon with your truck. Probably one of the strongest pieces of evidence in this case. And I can't remember if I heard it at the bond hearing, the recording of the crash and the afterwards. Maybe you played it, Mr. Metters, maybe you alluded to it. I don't remember. But that was a very egregious act that took place on May 7th of 2023. I do recognize, though, that Mr. Ackerman, you don't have a prior criminal record. And I typically, even in cases like this, not to lessen the seriousness of this murder case, but I typically do consider to some extent the fact that you do not have a prior record. Whatever I do in just a moment is not going to bring back Davis McClendon. Whether I give him the minimum of 30 years, as Mr. Swirling has requested, or whether I give him a life sentence without parole, Davis isn't coming back, and I'm so sorry. I'm so deeply sorry. Mr. Ackerman, if you please answer. Sentence of the court is, Mr. Ackerman, you be committed to the State Department of Corrections period of 45 years. And I'm giving you 518 days of pretrial confinement. Good luck to you. And good luck to everybody in this courtroom.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Hearing is adjourned.
I'm sure it meant so much to the family to hear his Honor's remarks there, not just the sentence, but certainly letting everyone know how he felt about this, what a tragic case it was, and recognizing the loss that they've experienced. So there we have it. If Bud Ackerman gets out, he would be 88 years old. After the
thanks to Julie Grant for covering this, and the judge gets a high mark from me, and as well as Soul Shine for Jesus, when she mentioned that she's never heard a judge say anything about praying for a family, and I agreed with that. And I never heard of a judge saying doing the same thing, especially when a defendant is being sentenced. It's big. That's mighty huge of him. And Soul Shine for Jesus adds on to this, saying, of anyone on YouTube, Ernest, I can freely say here that the devil is working overtime, stealing so many lives. He came to steal, kill, and destroy. This nation needs to turn back to the Lord. Soul Shine, stick around. You're gonna find out exactly just how right you are. And remember my sound effect for the trigger warnings? Get ready, because they will be in full effect. Let me go on to Oh, that's right. We haven't even started on the Sarah Boone suitcase murder trial yet because of Hurricane Milton. So I don't have any updates for that until it gets started. I do, however, have an update on the three suspects in Crystal Rogers' murder case. All right. Here's what we know. Trials for three men accused in the death of Crystal Rogers have been granted a change of venue. On Monday, the Nelson County Circuit Court announced that Stephen Lawson, Joseph Lawson, and Brooks Houck will now stand trial in Warren County, in Kentucky. Rogers went missing on July 5, 2015, and was last seen at Houck's home, who was her boyfriend at the time. Last year, Houck was charged with murder and tampering with physical evidence in the case. Stephen and Joseph Lawson are facing charges of complicity to commit murder. Earlier this year, Houck's defense filed a motion for a change of venue, stating that their client cannot get a fair trial in Nelson County or any other county in central Kentucky due to extensive media coverage. Houck's attorney is also arguing for the cases to be tried separately. According to official documents, the parties agreed on the move to either Christian County or Warren County, and the decision came from KRS 452.220, which states the change shall be made to the nearest county to which there is no valid objection. So they get to move to a different venue. Will they be tried separately? My prediction would be a solid no. They may get tried together. Let's see who we got. KC Boston. Love my channel. Connections coming out of my end, and I'm doing the best I can. I even stepped down the resolution on it. I'll do it one last time and see if that'll work, because I'm already down to my lowest resolution that I can, 360p. All right, let's see how that works out. And it's good to have you here, Casey Boston. Like I said, I'm predicting that these three will not be tried separately. I have been known to be wrong, so we'll just see how that boils out. All right, next up, we have more fallout from the Tyre Nichols case. Now, remember, Tyre Nichols was the young man who was beaten to death by police officers in Memphis, Tennessee. Here's the rest of that fallout. Two former Memphis police officers convicted of obstruction of justice in the fatal beating of Tyre Nichols will be released from jail ahead of sentencing in January. But a third, who was found guilty of more serious civil rights violations, will remain in custody, according to a federal judge and his ruling on Monday. Tadarius Bean and Justin Smith will be on home detention with GPS monitoring until sentencing, while Demetrius Haley will stay in jail. That's according to Magistrate Judge Charmaine Claxton said during a hearing in federal court. U.S. District Judge Mark Norris ordered all three men to be taken into custody after they were found guilty last week in the beating of Nichols in January 2023. The three, along with Emmett Martin and Desmond Mills Jr., were part of a crime suppression team that pulled the 29-year-old Nichols over a traffic stop, and then punched, kicked, and hit him with baton after he ran away from him. Nichols' mother, Rovon Wells, and his stepfather, Rodney Wells, opposed the release of any of the officers. When asked about Claxton's decision, Rodney Wells told the Associated Press, "We're fine." After nearly a month-long trial, Haley was convicted of all 4 charges faced by the officers: violating Nichols' civil rights by causing bodily harm through excessive force and by showing deliberate indifference to his serious medical needs, conspiracy to witness tamper, and obstruction of justice through witness tampering. The jury watched police video of the 5 officers hitting Nichols, who died at a hospital on January 10, 2023, 3 days after the beating. Mills and Martin pleaded guilty ahead of the trial, and they testified for prosecutors. Their sentences are pending. Bean and Smith were acquitted on more serious charges related to the civil rights violations and of conspiracy to tamper with witness testimony. They were convicted of obstruction of justice through witness tampering. Bean, Haley, and Smith faced up to 20 years in prison on the obstruction of justice convictions. Haley faces up to 10 years in prison on the civil rights violations. Prosecutors argued the 3 officers failed to tell their supervisor and medical personnel about the amount of force they used against Nichols. The officers also lied on forms that required them to disclose the amount of force they used against Nichols. The officers had been free on bond as they awaited trial, and they did not violate any conditions of their release, according to defense attorneys. Claxton ruled that Haley must remain in custody because he committed civil rights violations that carried at least a substantial risk of the use of physical violence. Defense attorney Michael Stengel unsuccessfully argued that the violations were not crimes of violence. Haley has the right to appeal the detention order. Claxton said Bean and Smith did not present a risk of flight or danger to the community. Home detention comes with certain conditions, including that they be allowed to leave home for work, school, religious services, and medical appointments, the judge said. Smith's mother, Regina Smith Ingram, said Smith lives with his wife and 2-year-old son. She said Smith takes care of his son while his wife works from home, and they have a stable home environment. Bean's lawyer, John Keith Perry, said Bean would not have been taken into custody were it not for extensive media coverage. Perry added that he was not giving media outlets any interviews about the case. He was found guilty of 1 count. That's it. Perry said of Bean, "We've done everything we could to respect this process." Nichols, who was black, had run from a traffic stop despite being hit with pepper spray and a taser. The 5 officers, who are also black, were fired, then indicted in the beating death that sparked national protests and calls for broad changes in policing. After officers caught up to Nichols, police body cameras and security camera captured officers pummeling Nichols in a struggle just steps from his home as he cried out for his mother. The video shows the officers milling about, talking and laughing as Nichols struggles with his injuries. An autopsy report shows he died from blows to the head. The report describes brain injuries and cuts and bruises on his head and other areas. The 5 officers have also been charged with second-degree murder in state court, where they pleaded not guilty. Mills and Martin are expected to change their pleas, and a trial date has not been set. Let's see. Casey Boston tells me I'm sounding a lot better and is surprised that the Memphis case hasn't received more national attention. Casey Boston, first off, I thank you for letting me know how much better I'm sounding here. And second, I don't say this to brag. I say this because this is what I do. This is where Bethea'S Byte Reloaded comes in. I cover cases that does not get the media attention people think it's getting. And as far as my commentary on these fine officers, I think police all over the United States needs to be retrained as far as detention of an individual, no matter what the situation is. What happened to Tyre Nichols shouldn't happen to anybody. And it was a traffic stop as well. Come on. Even that didn't make any sense to me. All right. Now, as I mentioned the suitcase murder trial in the state of Florida versus Sarah Boone was in recess until October 14th because of Hurricane Milton. The other case out of Florida was also in recess until tomorrow is the home renovation murder trial, Florida versus Corey Binderum. I will be covering these cases, and I'll bring you what you need to know as both of these trials go forth. All right. Next up, we have an appeal. We have an appeal by Aaron Dean, an ex-police officer who allegedly killed a woman through a window. All right. Here's all we know: the Supreme Court will not hear an appeal from a former Texas police officer convicted in the death of a woman who was shot through a window of her home. The justices did not detail their reasoning, as is typical, and none publicly dissented. Aaron Dean was convicted of manslaughter in Atiana Jefferson's fatal shooting, and he was sentenced to nearly 12 years in prison. Dean was originally charged with murder. He argued on appeal that prosecutors should not have been allowed to ask the jury to consider the lesser charge at the end of the trial. Dean, who is white, shot Jefferson, a 28-year-old black woman, on October 12, 2019, after a neighbor called a non-emergency police line to report that the front door to Jefferson's home was open. It later emerged that Jefferson and her nephew had left the doors open to vent smoke after he had burned hamburgers, and the two were up late playing video games. Dean's guilty verdict was a rare conviction of an officer for killing someone who was also armed with a gun. During the trial, the primary dispute was whether Dean knew Jefferson was armed. Dean testified that he saw her weapon. Prosecutors said the evidence showed otherwise. Body camera footage showed that Dean and a second officer who responded to the call did not identify themselves as police at the house. Dean and the other officer testified that they thought the house might have been burglarized, and they quietly moved into the fenced-off backyard looking for signs of forced entry. There, Dean, whose gun was drawn, fired a single shot through the window a moment after shouting at Jefferson, who was inside, to show her hands. Jefferson's nephew testified that she took out her gun because she believed there was an intruder in the backyard. Another one of those cases of police officers shoot first, ask questions never. I'll stand by that until somebody can prove me wrong on it. Next up, an informant tells police that Jennifer Glenhill admitted to shooting Matt Johnson as he slept and hiding the body. Matthew Johnson was a National Guardsman. Alright. I'm going to take you guys right now to Court TV for more information on this case.
Time to reveal something else you need to know tonight. Let's look at the big board. Husband missing, wife accused of murder. This is a case you need to know about. Wow. You're talking about the victim here. Here he is, Matthew Johnson, a member of the National Guard. But even more importantly, a husband and a father, 3 young children. The woman next to him, that's the one accused of his murder. Let me read from the probable cause affidavit. Jennifer Gledhill, that's her name. According to a confidential informant, openly admitted to killing Johnson by shooting him in the head while he slept. Johnson was shot while on the mattress inside the master bedroom of their home in the beautiful Cottonwood Heights area of Utah, $1 million home. Jennifer also told the informant that she had removed the body and had relocated his remains to a shallow grave at an undisclosed location. Could she do it by herself? Since September 21st, Matthew has had no contact with anyone, including his children. He is missing. We will keep an eye on this story for you folks.
And you will get whatever information comes up. You'll get it right here at Bethea'S Byte Reloaded. But for now, the question still out there. Why would the wife shoot her National Guardsman husband? There's got to be something to. There's got to be a little more than what's out there. Soul Shine for Jesus comes in regarding to the previous case that we covered. That it was terrible about how Atiana Johnson was unalived. Yeah, I totally agree with that. Like I said, some police officers are of the shoot first, ask questions never variety. This is where I was talking about with the Memphis police case that the entire police force across the United States needs retraining on rules of engagement. Okay. All right, guys. Let me go ahead and hit this right now. Yep, you heard it. That's the trigger warning alarm for a story that really has a lot to do with that'll trigger your mental health and your emotional health. This case here goes back to our good friend Lori Vallow Daybell. You're not going to believe this if you tried hard. So, I start with this my verbal warning. If you've had enough of Lori Daybell, you can't stomach to hear anything she's got to say, my suggestion is mute this story. That's all I can give you. For everybody else, I think they can take it. Viewer discretion is strongly advised. I'll just start with this part, and then I'll take you right to the video. In an emotional phone call that was posted as a part of a podcast series, Lori Vallow Daybell's son grilled his mother about his siblings' murders and her religious beliefs. As you know, Lori was found guilty of murdering her 2 children, Tylee Ryan and JJ Vallow, whose bodies were found buried on her 5th husband's property. Lori was also convicted of conspiracy to commit first-degree murder in the death of her 5th husband's first wife, Tammy Daybell. She was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. Lori's eldest child, Colby Ryan, who testified at her murder trial, no longer lived with his mother when his younger siblings died. In a jail phone call shortly after the children's bodies were found, Colby screamed that Lori was a murdering mother. Since then, Colby has started the Scar Wars podcast, where he talks about the case. So, knowing all this, again, let's see what we got here. First off, Kit, good to see you, Kit. And Soulshine. Lori is completely demonic. She blamed Kylie for everything. Oh, you mean Tylee? Oh, then you're ahead of the game, Soulshine, because this video is gonna break down exactly what Lori Vallow told her oldest son. Stand by. Again, the trigger warning is up. Viewer discretion is strongly advised.
Chad Daybell was the leader of a small doomsday cult. He created a following after publishing a series of books about his near-death experiences. He would often attend prepper conventions of people preparing for the end times. He was a Mormon who was kicked out of the church because of his extreme beliefs. While attending one convention, Daybell was approached by a blonde-haired, blue-eyed fan named Lori Vallow. The two hit it off and started having an affair. Both were married, but soon both their spouses would be dead, as would Lori's children, JJ and Tylee. Chad and Lori then quickly got married in Hawaii. Eventually, people in their lives caught on to what was happening. There was an intense investigation and a search for the missing children. They were found buried in Chad's backyard. Then the body of Chad's wife was exhumed. What followed were 2 trials and the convictions of Chad and Lori for the murders of JJ, Tylee, and Chad's wife, Tammy. Lori is now in Arizona awaiting another murder trial for the shooting death of husband number 4, Charles Vallow. And tonight, we take a listen to a jailhouse phone call that will make your jaw drop. I'm Vinny Politan. Thank you for joining us tonight here on Closing Arguments. Big hour coming up here. You wait till you hear what we have to play for you tonight on this program. Let's start with Lori Vallow Daybell. She has different names. She murdered 2 of her children. I mean, that's the bottom line. Like, that is who she is. That's who she is. You know, I used to refer to her as the doomsday cult mom. I don't call her a mom anymore. She still is, but I don't call her that. I call her the doomsday killer. The doomsday cult killer. She was convicted. Now, the reason you can, if you want to still call her mom, is because she has a surviving son named Colby. He was the oldest. He was her first child. And this whole thing has not been easy on him either, and his family, right? Think about it. If you're a relative of Lori Daybell and you're thrust into this insanity, and then the spotlight, and then all this death and destruction and deceit, and you're in the middle of it. It's part of your life. She's your mother, for worse or for worse. I'm not going to say for better, because there's nothing better about it. But for worse or worse, Colby has a mother, and Lori Daybell is her mother. Now, she right now is in Arizona because she's getting ready for yet another murder charge. For the murder of Charles Vallow, which, if you kind of add up her murders, was really, if she's found guilty, would be her first murder that we know about. You know, one of her prior husbands also died. I don't know exactly what happened there. They say it was natural causes, so we'll go with that for now. But she's now facing another murder charge and getting ready for that trial. And while she's incarcerated in jail, she spoke with her surviving child, Colby, an absolutely shocking jailhouse call. And we're going to hear some pieces of that tonight on this program. What do you say? What do you say to your mother? You try to figure out like your life, and you try to figure everything out. when your mother's been convicted of murdering your siblings. What do you do with that? How do you handle that? It's not easy. So let's get right to it, okay? Colby and his mother, Lori Daybell, convicted murderer, locked up waiting for another murder trial. Here, talking about the death of those children. Take a listen.
You imagine walking in, finding them, and they had been gone for hours. There was nothing I can do. And when I came in, and I knew Tylee had been upset, and I knew that she was upset with me that weekend. And when I came in on that scene, and they were gone, I thought Tylee did it to get back at me. I thought it was all my fault. I thought she was mad at me. No one on earth can imagine what that's like.
You're telling me that Tylee took JJ's life and then took her own life?
On accident.
Hold it. Time out. One of my favorite R&B singers had a line specifically just for this. Ron Isley of the Isley Brothers. He said, and I quote, "Try to slick a can of oil, who do you think you're fooling? Now get on out my face before I catch another case. Lori Vallow Daybell, just who do you think you're trying to fool?" Because certainly, I mean, I know I paused it at that point, but certainly Colby's not buying it. Anybody within earshot of you isn't buying it. I myself, the last outlaw, definitely is not buying it here. And I know that anybody still left in the chat is not buying it. So, like I said, try to slick a can of oil. Who do you think you're fooling, Lori Vallow Daybell? Because I don't think anybody is foolish enough to buy in to the fact that to buy into the fact, at least you claim is fact, that Tylee killed JJ and then herself? Come on. Give me a break here.
Wow. And as you saw there, Colby has a podcast. It's really good. It's called Scar Wars. The Scar Wars podcast, probably because of all the scars in his life and in his family for what Lori has done. And you can hear the full interview there. You can check it out on YouTube after the show. Wow. Let me bring in a guest who knows a whole lot about this story, has been covering it from the beginning, breaking news left and right, the news director of EastIdahoNews.com, Nate Eaton, back with us. Nate, great to see you. First, just your reaction to the fact that this phone call is made and Colby recorded it and we're hearing all of this.
I think Colby has had a lot to say, Vinny, that has really built up over the past 4 years, 5 years, honestly. And I think he was ready to talk to his mom. This is the first time that he's spoken to her since he had to testify at her trial. And actually, before that, he called her in jail right after the kids were found. And I think that he just wanted to get a lot off his chest. He says he went into this call without any rebuttals. He didn't want to rebuttal her because he figured it would be pointless. He just wanted to listen to her. He didn't want to argue with her. And that's exactly what happened. I mean, it was a 64-minute call that is just, you described it, it's just jaw-dropping.
And we see him there at the courthouse. And looks like his family is growing, which is good news, right?
Yeah, he's got a couple of little kids, and his wife is expecting their first baby boy. That's one of the things that Lori asked him: "Can I be a part of your kid's life and their lives? I want to be a grandma." She said she had a dream that his unborn child visited her, and Colby said, "Absolutely not." He said, "I forgive you. I want to make peace with you, but you cannot be a part of my kids' lives. You cannot be a part of my life."
That's understandable. That makes so much sense. I mean, it's obvious, I think, to everyone watching here. But when you're in the middle of it and it's your mom and it's your family, you know, there's history there, obviously. So let's talk about what she just said here. He wasn't going to rebut it, but I think we're entitled to if we want, Nate. She is now saying that Tylee killed JJ and then took her own life.
Yeah, but we can rebut it because the evidence that came out at both Lori and Chad's trials show that Tylee died first, 2 weeks before JJ died. If Tylee died first, how did she kill her brother? It doesn't make any sense at all about that. But let's say it could happen. Let's say that they died at the same time, or that JJ did die first. She says it was an accident. That Tylee maybe suffocated him or something happened, and then was so upset that she then took her own life. And this kind of mirrors what she said when she was sentenced, what Lori said. Lori said that accidents happened, suicides happened, accidental overdoses of medications happened. She didn't get specific there. She did with Colby. And then apparently Lori came home and found both of her kids dead, and thought that Tylee would blame her because she was mad with her. So trying to make sense of any of it, Vinny, you just can't. I don't know how to explain it, but there are very easy rebuttals to those arguments that, you and I get.
Yeah.
I don't know if Lori gets it or not.
And no discussion quite of the zombies at that in that part of the conversation. Let's listen to another piece. Again, this is from Colby Ryan's YouTube channel, Scar Wars podcast. Again, a few more details here about the death of JJ.
JJ was found fighting his bag that he was put in. So did Tylee held him down too long or put a bag over his head? Because that was the evidence that JJ was being suffocated by somebody. That was
okay. So that is not the case. So when I found my little precious babies, there was no bag, there was no tape,
okay, so
there's nothing of that. They were just gone.
Okay.
Anything that was done was after the fact, long after the fact. They were not in there.
Okay, once again, she's saying there was no bag there, but we heard the evidence at the trials, Nate, and it seemed pretty clear that little JJ, one of the parts that was breaking everyone's heart is that he was fighting for his life.
We saw the photos, Vinny. I mean, it wasn't televised, but we saw, it's an image I will never forget. As a dad, you can't forget it. He was not only had a bag on his head, it was wrapped in tape. His fists were bound, his legs were bound. So she's saying she came in and the children were dead and there was no plastic bag or tape. And then long after the fact, somehow someone put the bag on JJ's head. I mean, who? She never says who in the call. And she doesn't, blame Chad, her husband, or Alex, her brother, who's now dead. Again, it doesn't make sense. The bigger question, well, I don't know if it's a bigger question, but an equal question is, who chopped up Tylee and burned her? Who did that? She told Colby, well, Tylee wanted to be cremated, and he said, well, why didn't you cremate her? He has their remains. They've been cremated. He goes, I have the remains. Why didn't you cremate her? Burning her in Chad Daybell's backyard and then burying her in the ground, that's not cremation.
looking back, right, in everything that was developing in her mind and Chad Daybell with the zombies and they're leaving their bodies, that seems to be out the door now, right? That they, like, my understanding, trying to understand her, right, was that, like, Charles was no longer alive anyway. So when he was being shot, Charles wasn't being shot because he had left his body and he was Nick Schneider or something. And that the zombie, that little JJ had turned into a zombie. He wasn't himself anymore. We're not hearing that.
No, well, she said at the beginning of the conversation toward the beginning with Colby that she never used the terminology zombie. She said, I went through all of my discovery before the trial, and the term zombie was only mentioned once, and it was when JJ was talking about getting a toy. Well, okay, if she didn't use it, Chad Daybell sure used it. It came up at the trial that there was a dark and a light scale, and everybody had a ranking. If you were light, you were good, and if you were dark, you were wicked. Beyond wicked was a zombie, and the only way to get rid of that zombie was to say a special prayer or destroy the body so the zombie would leave. Friends testified of this. The evidence showed this at the trial, so she's telling Colby that, well, those weren't my words. And he confronted her on the multiple probations things, the fact that she believed there was multiple lives. He said, I don't believe that. I don't believe in reincarnation. I believe we have one time on this earth. And she still believes it. She said she still believed it.
Let's listen to more now from Colby J. Ryan's YouTube channel. She's trying to explain her own behavior and reaction to the death of JJ.
I didn't want anyone to know what Tylee had done to JJ, and I wanted to continue to protect Tylee as her mother, who has been trying to protect her whole life. Like, this is my scenario, Colby. What if Tylee holding JJ down for too long, trying to get him to not scream and be loud in the apartment, which she was always upset about. We weren't in a big house anymore. We were in these tiny little apartments, and he was loud. And what if she held him down too long and realized afterwards what she had done? What if she had come running to me and told me what she had done, right? That it was an accident? Do you not think that I would have told police that I did it to save Tylee? Because
throughout that last set, all I can hear out of Lori Vallow Daybell is, what if? What if? What if? We already know you did it. The evidence showed you did it. You killed your two kids. Come on now. I mean, all the excuses you can come up with is gonna do you no good in prison right now. The only thing is that's your saving grace right now, Lori Vallow Daybell, is the fact that you're gonna be spending the rest of your life in prison, while your husband, he's on his way to death row. And I don't mean the record company either. Just saying.
You know that I would have.
Well, what we do know, she went to Hawaii with Chad. There they are, hanging by the pool. I mean, that's what this was about. Give us a break. She's continuing to portray herself as this great mother.
Yeah. But also as a great person, the whole call centers around her and how hard it's been for her and trying to give an explanation. It's fascinating to me to watch Colby's body language. You can tell he wants to rebuttal everything she says, but he's holding a lot of stuff in. He gets emotional at times. I mean, how would you feel if your mother who's convicted of killing your two little siblings, comes out and blames it on your sister. And she tells Colby, oh, don't worry, Tylee and JJ visited me, presumably in spirit form, after they died, and Tylee apologized that she was such a brat. Blaming it on Tylee, and Tylee saying that she was a brat. I mean, it's just hard to fathom that. But here, once again, Lori is saying, I had nothing to do with it. She goes on to talk about how Jesus and Satan both had visited her, and Satan was trying to stop her in her mission, but she was doing what Jesus wanted. And still so many questions. The phone kept cutting out when Colby was talking to her. I'm sure that he could talk to her for another 5 hours, or maybe not. I mean, maybe he got what he needed out of that call and there wasn't much there, and he has to just, mentally end it.
Try to turn the page. Try to turn the page, in some respect. In looking at Lori Vallow, this is someone, I always got the feeling that this was someone who was born, with good looks, and was so used to using that, and it sort of blanketed her in this narcissism where everything revolved around her, because some of the descriptions we've heard from her family is that a lot of things did revolve around her, because she was, the big bright blue eyes and the long hair and the beauty contests and all of that attention, it continues to fuel her, even though she is behind bars for murdering her children and is never getting out and is facing another murder trial. Let's take a listen to that part you just referenced, which is her now invoking a Jesus into all of this.
I learned all these things that I know from Jesus personally. So when he came to me in the temple and he put his hands on my head and ordained me to do something for him, like a job, right? And he said, will you do this job if you lose everything? This was in 2017. Okay. And then he said, will you do this job if you become like Job? So Jesus gave me a job. Okay. Lucifer has done every single thing to get me to take my own life. He needs me here to help people. Right. Now, there's eight women in my pod right now facing the death penalty. Uh-huh. Okay? 8 women in this little jail. Okay. Help them every day.
Wow. Hey, you were right. You're seeing what he's going through in these moments. Like you can watch it, right? And you can look at it, oh, it's a podcast, but it's not really a podcast. It's something much, much deeper for Colby and this moment with his mother. And, for a young dad now getting ready to raise those kids and go through, the best times of your life, really, is when you're raising your kids. It's amazing. And it looks like he's trying to close this other chapter so he can be all in on that. That's what I'm taking away from this.
Yeah, I think so. And think about it, Vinny. He's lost his whole family. His dad, Charles, shot. His 2 siblings, dead. His mother in prison. It's just him. Fortunately, he has extended, aunts and uncles and cousins. But really, it's him with his wife and family, his young kids, and this mom that is just down the street in the jail, and he's got to have this conversation. When it's all over, he breaks down on camera and he says, I want to make it clear Tylee did not do this, and for her to blame Tylee is disgusting. And there's so many other things in the call that just don't make any sense at all. But she's in this delusion, or some people say she might be faking it. Whatever you believe, she is there, and there she is smiling, walking into the courtroom. You mentioned that earlier. She's very flirtatious. We've seen it in the videos with the police, and she has gotten things her way for a lot of her life. But I don't know if she'd want to be in prison if it was her choice right now.
Yeah, well, we'll see her again in Arizona in that next murder trial. Nate Eaton, EastIdahoNews.com. Great to see you. Thanks so much for sharing your insight into all of this. And again, Colby J. Ryan's YouTube channel. After our show tonight, please, then you go check it out. You hear the whole interview. When we come back, we'll bring in our think tank, get their reaction to this and what they expect from Lori at her next trial, based upon what we're seeing and hearing right now. Plus, coming up next hour.
Friends, all I can say to you is this. Delusion, thy name is Lori Vallow Daybell. Murderous, thy name is Lori Vallow Daybell. Prison, you're already there, but you still have another murder trial coming. I want everybody to take one good look at my face. As you're looking at my face, I want you to look for any signs of sympathy in it. I guarantee you will find none. Soul Shine for Jesus says, so what happened to the 10 Commandments? One specific says, thou shalt not kill. Pretty explicit to me. Hey, it's pretty explicit to me too. So to say that no, this is just my opinion. This is just my opinion. You may agree with me, you may not. But to say that Lori Vallow Daybell got her messages from Jesus Christ to do what she did, and then get convicted of it, and then still spill this narrative while in prison, that she got her direct orders from Jesus Christ himself. Please, somebody, preferably you, Lori Vallow Daybell, get me chapter and verse. In the meantime, we're going to move on to the next story. Lori Vallow Daybell has gotten on my nerves already. So what I'm gonna do, like I said, I'm gonna move on to the next story. I'm gonna go ahead and put the trigger warning scroll back up, just in case we happen to run into another, and we will run into another story that is that is trigger warning coming. But right now, more fallout to the from the Rush shooting trial. Hannah Gutierrez pleading guilty to a gun charge in a separate case. The weapons supervisor in the fatal shooting of a cinematographer by Alec Baldwin on the set of the Western film Rust pleaded guilty Monday to a separate criminal charge of carrying a gun into a licensed liquor establishment. Movie armorer Hannah Gutierrez agreed to change her plea to guilty on the charge in exchange for a reduced sentence of 18 months supervised probation. Judge T. Glenn Ellington approved the agreement that allows Gutierrez to begin probation while serving out an 18-month prison term at a New Mexico State Penitentiary for the involuntary manslaughter in the fatal shooting of cinematographer Helena Hutchins. In the Rust case, prosecutors blamed Gutierrez for unwittingly bringing live ammunition onto the movie set and for failing to follow basic gun safety protocols. Gutierrez shuffled into the Santa Fe courtroom Monday in a beige jumpsuit, handcuffs, and ankle shackles to change her plea to guilty and waive her right to trial. I'd just like to apologize to a court and thank you for your judgment today, she said. The case stems from evidence that a few weeks before Rust began filming in October 2021, Gutierrez carried a gun into a downtown bar in Santa Fe where firearms are prohibited. Special Prosecutor Carrie Morrissey said Gutierrez filmed herself in the bathroom of the bar with a handgun. explaining how she snuck in the prohibited firearm in a video that was obtained when authorities searched the armorer's phone during the arrest investigation. Gutierrez was convicted in March at trial of involuntary manslaughter in the fatal shooting of Hutchins. She has an appeal of that conviction pending in a higher court. Baldwin, the lead actor and co-producer for Rust, was pointing a gun at Hutchins during a rehearsal for the film when the revolver went off, killing Hutchins and wounding director Joel Souza. In July, Judge Mary Marlowe Summer dismissed an involuntary manslaughter case against Baldwin halfway through the trial based on the withholding of evidence by police and prosecutors from the defense. Morrissey has since asked the judge to reconsider. Under the terms of the plea agreement, Gutierrez is prohibited while on probation from possessing firearms, consuming alcohol or drugs, and must pay $180 in fees while submitting a sample of her DNA to a criminal database and completing an addiction treatment program. Defense attorney Jason Bull said the agreement makes it possible for Gutierrez to be released from prison as soon as June 2025 to complete probation in Arizona without getting an additional felony conviction on the record. Before being led away, Gutierrez blew kisses toward the court gallery where her mother, Stacy Reed, was seated. Reed said she was grateful her daughter can begin to fulfill new parole requirements prior to release from prison. She's not gotten a fair shake from the beginning, said Reed, who traveled from Arizona for the hearing. Honestly, guys, this is one I am praying will come to an end soon. And Soul Shine for Jesus chiming in on Lori Vallow Daybell one last time, saying that proves right there how blinded by Satan she truly is. Oh, most definitely. She apparently not only blinded, but deaf to the voice of Satan as compared to the voice of Jesus Christ. But like I always say, we're not here to talk religion. We're here to talk about these murder cases, and some of these cases are just like that. Some of these cases, guys, you won't believe just how evil some of these criminals are. And I've got one. I got one that I really want to hit you up on, but that's coming up a little bit later. But as far as this Rust case, I am looking forward to seeing this whole thing end on some kind of a positive note for both Hannah Gutierrez and it's already working out for Alec Baldwin. His case is already dismissed with prejudice, which means his case can't be tried again. Now, for Hannah Gutierrez, she's still trying to appeal her case, and if she happens to get out before the appeal goes through, then that's still good news. She'll be out. She can fulfill the parole requirements, and that'll be a wrap for that. So we'll just stick around and see what comes next. Here's somebody else trying to get a new trial to proclaim while still proclaiming his innocence. Among the items Scott Peterson's defense will be given access to are police interviews with burglary suspects and evidence from a Vern van. So Scott Peterson has access to evidence. Could this mean that he could get a new trial? Let me see something real quick. Alright. Scott Peterson has been granted post-conviction discovery in the latest series of events in his bid for a new trial. In a filing dated October 7th and obtained by Court TV, San Mateo County Superior Court Judge Elizabeth Hill addressed more than 600 pieces of evidence that Peterson's defense had requested access to. Peterson was sentenced to death for the 2002 murders of his pregnant wife Lacey and their unborn son. In 2021, he was resentenced to life in prison without parole. The following year, he was denied a new trial on allegations of juror misconduct. Peterson's defense, in their attempt to convince a judge he deserves a new trial, had asked for a number of items related to a burglary at the home of Rudy and Susan Medina, who lived diagonally across from the Petersons. Two men tied to the burglary, Stephen Todd and Donald Pierce, were cleared as suspects in Lacey's disappearance. Judge Hill denied Peterson's request for all Modesto police reports, and steps officers took to verify Pierce and Todd's alibis and more information about their polygraph exams. But Judge Hill granted Peterson's team access to audio and video recordings and transcripts of the suspects' interviews with police, as well as handwritten notes from the officers who conducted the interviews. Peterson's team will also be able to review the 2003 search warrants relating to the Medina burglary, as well as photos of the evidence found, which includes items identified as not belonging to the Medinas. Peterson's team also focused on Lacey's diamond-encrusted Croton watch. Carl Jensen, a defense investigator, told the court he was contacted by a man who said he was in jail watching TV and saw a court TV report about the pawn of a watch that might have been Lacey's. Upon seeing the story, he recalled that in mid-February 2003, a friend named Deanna Harbin Renfro and her friend Anthony Scarlatta asked him if he wanted to buy a watch. He described the watch and that they showed him as medium-sized with a lot of diamonds. But investigators tracked down those leads years ago and determined that the watch was not the same, prompting the judge to deny any further access to records in the case. Peterson and his team had previously asked to be allowed to perform DNA testing on a bloodstained mattress found in a burned-out orange van less than a mile from the Petersons' home the day after Lacey was reported missing. Hill previously denied the request and noted in her latest ruling, the court does not view the orange van evidence as casting doubt on Peterson's guilt, because no witness or forensic evidence obtained ever established that Lacey Peterson was in the orange van. However, it is apparent based on the involvement of Detective Shipley and the cross-referencing of the investigation of the two cases that the orange van was part of the investigation of the offenses charged. That reasoning led Judge Hill to grant Peterson's team access to a complete copy of the DOJ Central Valley Crime Laboratory file and documents relating to the collection of fingerprints from the van. In July, Judge Hill issued an order that outlined DNA testing on a piece of duct tape recovered from Lacey Peterson's pants at the time of her autopsy would proceed. Judge Hill ordered that testing would be conducted within 45 days and the results would be submitted under seal. Court filings suggest that testing was completed in late August. There's been no further public notice of the testing and results. In January, the Los Angeles Innocence Project took over his case and began another bid for a new trial based on critical pieces of evidence allegedly overlooked by investigators. Among those items, a 15.5-inch piece of duct tape found on Lacey Peterson's pants. In August, Peterson spoke out for the first time in 2 decades in Peacock's 3-part docuseries, Face to Face with Scott Peterson. In the series, he maintained his innocence. And Sunshine and Soulshine still referring Lori Vallow Daybell. No, she did not speak to Jesus Christ. She spoke to Satan. Anybody knows that. Knows. Period. Anyway, back to this case. Scott Peterson right now is literally breaking his neck trying to get his case get his case to where he can get a new trial and hopefully clear him of killing his wife and unborn son. But there's so much to unpack as far as the evidence goes. It's gonna take them a while to get through it all. So we're gonna wait. We're gonna see what becomes of that evidence next, and when I get the update, you guys will get it right here at Bethea'S Byte Reloaded. All right, we have another sentencing. We're going to go to Iowa for the sentencing of the defendant in the Dad in the Ditch murder trial. Alec Jones, convicted of killing his dad, and his brother is going to go to trial once they can get cleared to that. So, having said that, I'm going to take you to my good friends who you see on the screen here. On your left, the Honorable Judge Ashley Wilcott, and on your right, Michael Ayala, as they cover the sentencing of Alec Jones.
In Iowa, the Dad in a Ditch murder trial defendant Alec Jones, well, he has now been handed a mandatory sentence of life in prison without parole.
Now, you saw Jones's trial played out right here on Court TV. A jury found him guilty back in August of first-degree premeditated murder in the death of his father, Dennis. Investigators say he was fatally shot and then dumped on the side of the road in a ditch.
Before reading Jones's sentence, the judge did hear from his mother, who pleaded to give him some grace. Take a listen.
Now remember, there's another trial that's going to happen in regards to this case. We still have yet to hear when Alec Jones's brother Nathan will be tried for allegedly aiding and abetting in their father's murder. We're going to keep you updated right here, of course, on Court TV.
And of course, when that trial begins, you guys will be the first to know, because I will let you all know when that one will start. In regard to Scott Peterson, Soulshine for Jesus says, I hope Scott Peterson doesn't get another trial. My opinion only. Well, you an opinion you and I may differ on, because this is the one time I hardly ever say this, but this will be one time I actually say, what if he is? They have the evidence there, and the evidence does not point to him. Fair is fair. Number one, and number two, as we just saw with the sentencing of Alec Jones, Soulshine, you mentioned about thou shalt not kill. Now that is true, which is why in our legal system, in one form or another, they say, if you take someone's life, you forfeit your own. Depending on the jurisdiction, you forfeiting your own life could mean your life in prison, or Worse, depending on the jurisdiction, it could very well mean the death penalty. Isn't that right, Chad Daybell? Alright. Alright, now, we have trial dates coming. We have trial dates set. First of all, we talk about the case against Bryan Kohberger in the Idaho 4 shooting trial. The date has been set. The trial date has been set for Bryan Kohberger, the man accused of killing 4 University of Idaho students in November of 2022. The trial will start at the Ada County Courthouse beginning on August 11th, 2025. August 11th, that's my wife's birthday. Jury selection will begin July 30th. The trial is expected to last as long as November 7th, 2025. Kohberger is accused of fatally stabbing students Ethan Chapin, Zan Kernodle, Madison Mogan, and Kaylee Gonzalez in an off-campus home near the University of Idaho, in November of 2022. At Kohberger's first Ada County court appearance on September 26th, the prosecution said they believe it would take them roughly a month and a half to present their case. The defense will need an additional 4 weeks. According to the new court order issued by Judge Stephen Hibbler, the state must respond to Kohberger's challenge of the death penalty by Thursday, October 10. A hearing on the motion will be held on November 7. If a jury finds Kohberger guilty, the penalty phase of the trial could take an additional 3 weeks. A final pre-trial conference is scheduled for May 15th at 9 a.m. and may continue into the next day. Kohberger's case began in Latah County, where the murders took place, but the trial was moved to Ada County after the defendant was granted a request on September 12th to move the trial to ensure an unbiased jury could be selected. Of course, he's getting that because he's thinking, no, I can't get a fair trial because, for one, too much media coverage. Let's see. Soulshine says, I apologize for all the talk of religion. No issue. If Scott is innocent, then I do agree he needs a new trial. I'm gonna have to go, trying to get mom ready for bed and finish up chores. Hey, no problem. And let's see, the Idaho 4 case absolutely tears my heart out. It's tearing a lot of people's hearts out that has paid attention to this case from the beginning. And we just waiting to see what will happen when this case finally goes to trial next year. Next year on my wife's birthday. I don't know whether that's good luck for her or bad luck for him. No, I'm talking about the Bryan Kohberger case, honey. It's going to start next year on your birthday. We'll just have to wait and see. Oh, speaking of trial dates. Starting, it's now time for another edition of Did He Do It? Yeah, this is the case of the United States against Sean Combs. Ooh, that's enough to give you a little bit of a chill right there. A tentative May 2025 trial date was set Thursday in Sean Diddy Combs' federal sex trafficking trial in New York, with more possible charges on the horizon, according to government prosecutors. Combs faces a possible life sentence if convicted of charges stemming from allegations that he used his power and influence to force women into participating in drug-fueled orgies known as freak-offs that he recorded for blackmail purposes. Combs has pleaded not guilty and is awaiting trial in a federal detention center in Brooklyn after 2 judges denied his request for bond. The embattled hip-hop mogul returned to Manhattan federal court Thursday with 3 new members of his defense team for his first status hearing before a new judge in the case. U.S. District Court Judge Aaron Subramanian, wearing a beige 2-piece jail uniform, Combs smiled broadly and waved at his family as he entered the courtroom and saw 6 of his children, his mother, and their supporters filling 2 benches in the gallery. The hearing focused on the status of discovery, trial, and hearing dates, and a new defense motion accusing the government of leaking information to raise public hostility against Combs ahead of trial. The most egregious example, according to the defense motion, is the explosive hotel video of Combs assaulting ex-girlfriend Cassie Ventura that CNN published in 2023. The motion accuses the Department of Homeland Security of leaking not only the video, but grand jury testimony and tipping off news crews to searches of Combs' homes. In an email to the defense that was filed with the court, prosecutors said DHS did not have possession of the hotel video before CNN released it. The government believes the motion is baseless and is simply a means to exclude a damning piece of evidence disguised in press statements. That's according to Assistant U.S. Attorney Elizabeth Johnson in Thursday's hearing, referring to the hotel video. The motion requests a hearing to determine the source of the alleged leaks and an order prohibiting the government from releasing more information. The government is working on a response to the motion, Johnson said. In the meantime, the parties agreed to a gag order barring both sides from discussing in the media non-public information or information that doesn't come up in the courtroom through court filings. Separately, the government raised concerns about defense lawyer Mark Agnifilow's interview in a TMZ documentary in which he called the case a racist prosecution, trying to take down a successful black man. Prosecutor Johnson argued such statements about the merits of a prosecution could threaten the integrity of the proceedings and Combs' fair trial rights in violation of local administrative rules. Agnifilo did not directly address the critique, but said he was willing to affirm his obligations under the local rule, especially now that a gag order is in place. Most of the hearing consisted of Prosecutor Johnson sharing the government's progress in turning over evidence to the defense. Johnson said the government was working diligently to extract data from 96 electronic devices that were seized in searches on March 25, 2024 of Combs' properties in Miami and Los Angeles, and of Combs himself at a private airport in Florida, including at the airport, 9 devices seized, data from 7 extracted so far. The Miami property, 36 devices seized, data from 8 devices extracted, totaling 90 terabytes. So big, they are trying to figure out a way to share it. And from the LA property, 51 devices seized, data from 27 extracted so far. The prosecutors said a handful of variables were hindering the government's efforts. Current technology doesn't let the government extract data from newer devices, which are more sophisticated than the government's decryption tools. The government's current forensic tools don't support old technology, and some devices are damaged, which prohibits extraction. They are trying to repair those devices. Disclosure will continue on a rolling basis, Johnson said, with the goal of sharing everything with the defense by the judge's proposed deadline of December 31st, 2024. Also on Thursday, the parties agreed to a tentative trial date of May 5th, 2025 to meet Combs' demand for a speedy trial. But the government's investigation continues, Johnson told the court, and it may bring a superseding indictment with more or amended charges that could push back the proposed date. Ladies and gentlemen, to say that Diddy's got problems, in the words of his good friend Jay-Z, he's got 99 problems, and this case is one. Soulshine says she checks every day to see if anything new has been let out. Keep checking in, because I will be if it's happening and the media isn't covering it, you can bet you'll get it here at Bethea'S Byte Reloaded. That's where I make my claim, and I'm not saying it to brag. I say it because it's fact. If the mainstream media isn't covering it, or is not giving it enough coverage, you'll find the news right here at Bethea'S Byte Reloaded. Now, and as far as Diddy goes, he's gonna need every bit of a miracle he can to get out of this. So until next time, join us again for another edition of Diddy Do It? Next up, an ex-Marine is accused of killing his girlfriend and saying that his girlfriend and he were having rough relations with each other. That's the best. That's the cleanest I can say it. All right. A former Marine accused of brutally murdering his girlfriend and fleeing the country was back in court Wednesday for a hearing. 41-year-old Raymond McLeod is charged in the June 2016 death of 30-year-old Crystal Mitchell. Her body was found inside a friend's home, that's according to Scripps News San Diego. Mitchell had been strangled to death. Police said she was last seen with McLeod at a bar, where a witness said they saw the defendant slap her before leaving. In a wanted poster, the U.S. Marshal Service described McLeod as an avid bodybuilder and heavy drinker with a history of domestic violence. Now, ladies and gentlemen, before I continue, being a bodybuilder and a heavy drinker is not a good combination. Just saying. Following Mitchell's murder, McLeod fled the country. Throughout the years, the authorities tracked him to Guatemala and Belize. He was apprehended in August 2022 in El Salvador following a tip that he had been teaching English at school. Wednesday's hearing focused on the admissibility of evidence for an upcoming preliminary hearing scheduled for October 22nd. Prosecutors were seeking to admit instances of uncharged domestic violence allegations from two of McLeod's ex-wives. The defense sought to keep those out. However, a judge granted the prosecution's motion solely for the preliminary hearing. At Wednesday's hearing, McLeod's defense also claimed Mitchell accidentally died while being strangled during rough consensual relations. McLeod has pleaded not guilty to a charge of first-degree murder. He faces up to 25 years to life in prison if he's convicted at trial. Mitchell's mother, Josephine Wenzel, has been credited with playing a critical role in finding McLeod, according to the San Diego District Attorney's Office. Wenzel, a former police detective, told KFMB-TV that she started pounding the pavement virtually by monitoring social media and placing want ads. This is where things are gonna look bad for McLeod. 25 years to life in prison. That doesn't look good if he's convicted. And on top of it, if the strangulation that occurred, if I don't know how well that defense is gonna hold up, so we'll just have to wait and see when this goes to trial, just how far they'll go with it, and whether it actually holds any kind of water. Next up, Garth Brooks publicly names his rape accuser in a countersuit that demanded she pay him damages for emotional distress and defamation. Now, I brought this story last week, and I didn't believe the woman making this claim then, and I don't believe her now. I'll tell you why in a little bit. In fact, what I'm going to do first is take you on a deep dive into this lawsuit. Then I'll give you my commentary.
Welcome back. This morning, we're spotlighting the sex assault allegations against country music legend Garth Brooks. These are claims so shocking they could tarnish a legendary career.
I got friends in lonely places where the whiskey drowns and the tears change my blue.
The plaintiff, going by Jane Rowe, says that she worked for Brooks as a hairstylist and makeup artist. The incidents allegedly occurred in 2019. Now, Brooks' accuser says that she was once raped by him during a work trip. In addition to sex assault and battery accusations, the suit also accuses Brooks of repeatedly exposing himself, talking about sex, and sending sexually explicit text messages to her. Now, Garth Brooks is calling it a shakedown, saying in part, quote, "Hush money, no matter how much or how little, is still hush money. In my mind, that means I'm admitting to behavior I am incapable of. Ugly acts that no human should ever do to another." Brooks categorically denies the allegations, is going so far as to say that they are defamatory. Now, it's also important to note that he could have settled. He was made aware of this. His legal team was made aware that the suit was going to be filed, and he chose not to settle. He chose to file his own suit, albeit anonymously, did not include his name, and it just said he's a very famous musician with fans around the world and a large fortune, and that he denies these allegations, and if they're allowed to be put forth in a lawsuit, that it would damage his reputation, his career, and harm his family. Everybody's talking about these allegations this morning. Let's bring in our guests now and dissect this suit further. I want to welcome in entertainment reporter and the host of LA Diaries, Kinsey Schofield, and entertainment lawyer. He's represented his fair share of celebrities, attorney Lee Hutton. Good morning to you both. Okay, I want to show you a few of the portions of this suit that are getting a lot of people talking and scratching their heads this morning. On one portion, and this is graphic, in the suit, Garth Brooks is being described as a hulky man, weighing nearly 300 pounds at the times, in good shape, lifting weights. In the suit says, and I'm quoting here, Brooks even held her small body upside down by her feet and penetrated her. She was helpless to move from his grip and terrified at what was happening to her. While he held her upside down, dangling by her ankles, all the blood rushed to her head, causing her to be dizzy and sick. This averment here that contains this information is part of what is being alleged as a rape, alleged in May of 2019. Attorney Lee Hutton, your reaction to what's contained in these averments, please.
So they clearly took the opportunity to push really hard on the facts, is to get as detailed as they can so the public can make the decision for themselves that before any trial that, hey, these things happen. How is she so detailed? Now, I do have to point out Garth Brooks, very similar to another high-profile case that I had where we sued the case first, and we sued it anonymously in order to kind of jumpstart the facts, and we made some extortion claims. So it looks like they're doing this in this case as well. Now, with regard to the specific facts of this complaint, it is rather detailed, and they say they have text messages. So I think this is where all the faculties of a person's defense have to be in line, and that includes the PR statement. Sometimes the PR statements can be too broad, where somebody can poke holes in it. For example, he says, look, this doesn't happen, it's outlandish, and the other side saying, no, we have sexually explicit messages. So we have to see how that plays out.
Definitely, Lee. Thank you for all of that. And speaking of, I want to bounce this off of Kinsey next, please. So we have pulled from the suit some of the messages that were included by this plaintiff in her allegations. And we're going to put them up on the screen to take a look together here. And she's saying that she said over the phone to Brooks, quote, I want to make sure that even though I've told you no, that you're cool with no. I mean, no as in no fooling around like we had done. You're cool with that, right? Goes down a little further. Ms. Rowe also said, when I saw you at this event, when you were doing whatever it was, you were pretty upset with me. And then he replied, quote, no, I would never be upset with you. Look at it this way, okay? Look at it. The best way I can explain it is me and you broke into a jewelry store. And the second we broke the door, we looked at each other and said, this isn't right. But we had already broken the door. And so I think me and you get out and run and just hope that nobody ever finds out and just love one another and be friends. Is that fair? Kinsey Schofield, there are ways to read this. One way, perhaps, is that this was a consensual affair, a consensual tryst. We don't see anything here about Jane Roe being forced, violently grabbed, or violated in any way. Tell us a little bit about the public sentiment in that regard, if you would, please.
Yeah, I mean, this is not like the Diddy or R. Kelly situation where people said there were whispers behind the scenes. There are real questions surrounding the validity of these accusations, to the point where my instinct is that this is a consensual affair, and that would be very damaging for the Garth Brooks brand. He's married to Trisha Yearwood, one of the biggest country female artists of all time ever, and they are more powerful together. Not only that, they have dodged and tried to dismiss affair rumors themselves over the last 2 decades. He was accused of cheating on his first wife with Trisha, and he said that that simply was not true. So this would be very damaging to both of their careers going forward because they are stronger together.
Great point, Kinsey. Right. So, here, this could be, and what looks like, if these messages are authentic, if they were authenticated or between the two of them, that they got together and then there was some regret, and everyone's trying to move forward until there's a lawsuit. So we're going back to 2019. Lee Hutton, I'll tell you my first thought with this. When I read the date, I thought, well, if this woman was raped, why didn't she go to police? Because she still can. In California, 10-year window of statute of limitations here. Why go the civil route? Your thoughts on that strategy, please.
You know, a lot of times when you go the civil route for a person making the accusations, you can do a couple of things. Is number one, if both parties are willing participants, you can settle it out of court without even going to a police investigation. Many times, and we have to look at this from both sides of the coin, if somebody has endured a very serious situation such as rape, it's not an easy task pass to go to strangers and relive the situation. Now, somebody can say, well, why go the civil route and sue it out? From what I understand, they did try to go to Garth Brooks and resolve the situation out of court. She does have a Jane Doe anonymous, so nobody really knows who she is. And it really depends on how Garth Brooks is going to aggressively defend this, which means does it go all the way to court where she's going to lose the anonymity of the Jane Roe? So there's a lot of, personal choices of why you would go the civil route versus the criminal route. As you say, even though that there was this situation of a rape allegation, there's some personal relationships here. She with Trisha Yearwood, she with Garth Brooks. He's a legend. It really is a personal choice for the person to choose, and she chose the civil route.
Mm-hmm. Lee, thank you. Kinsey, I want to go back to you. I want to show you another one of the text messages in the suit. She's claiming that Garth Brooks made her delete messages and is saying that in the suit she included what she's got. And she says that he wanted her to refer to a body part of his in a certain way. And you see the top message in blue there underneath what's redacted is, she writes, and that huge stick you carry, Roosevelt. And then he writes, I'll take that nickname. Thank you. I love you. People reading this, again, going back to the point, may go, does this look like somebody forcing someone else to say dirty things, send dirty messages, forcibly have sexual contact? Or does it seem like maybe this even went beyond tryst or an affair? I mean, the I love you there, that kind of stood out to me in addition to the Roosevelt comment. Kinsey, last word on this here, please, and what you think this is going to do overall for Garth Brooks, his career, in the marriage with him and Trisha Yearwood.
I mean, as far as I know, this makeup artist was associated with Trisha since at least 1999. That is somebody that's been in your life for a significant amount of time. You might love that person. I think that this is a difficult situation, but I am seeing a significant amount of people side with Garth Brooks here and ask if a crime was committed or if this is a case of celebrity extortion.
Mm-hmm. Kinsey, this is so fascinating. I have many more questions for you and for attorney Lee Hutton. We'll have to leave it here for today. But as this case continues developing and when the first court dates come, we're going to be assessing this more. Lee and Kinsey, thank you both so much for your insight and expertise. We'll see you soon.
Thanks to Court TV for that bit of coverage on the Garth Brooks case. Now, I promised I said I was gonna give you my reason for not believing the alleged victim in the case, because it's something that Julie and her panel brought up just minutes ago. If Garth Brooks did sexually assault this woman, why didn't she go to the police? Why go the civil route instead of bringing him up on sexual assault charges? I believe to this moment that she was all about the money. She'll continue to be all about the money until this case is closed. That's all. That's my belief. What do you guys think? I'd love to hear from you. Drop me a line in the comments section when this video is done, or drop me a line in the community section. All right. Next up, police focus on uncooperative husband's truck after his wife disappears. A neighbor tells police that he heard 2 to 3 screams after seeing Brad and Suzanne Simpson in a physical altercation. police in Texas have arrested the husband of a missing woman on multiple charges, but say they need more information and help from the public to process the case. 51-year-old Suzanne Simpson was last seen with her husband, Brad Simpson, on October 6th. On Monday evening, Brad reported his wife missing to the police in Olmos Park, where they live. Olmos Park Police Chief Fidel Villegas told reporters at a news conference on Wednesday that the couple have been married for approximately 22 years and share 4 children together. According to police, the couple spent Sunday night at a private club in Alamo Heights, Texas called the Argyle Club. The facility, which describes itself as offering a 5-star dining experience, was created to support the Texas Biomedical Research Institute. According to the club's website, it exists as a meeting place for the men and women of science and the men and women who have dedicated personal resources for the advancement of this institution. For more, we go to coverage courtesy of Court TV.
Trending in true crime this morning, authorities in Texas are searching for a missing mother of 2 while her husband is sitting in jail, accused of assaulting her. Suzanne Simpson was last seen Sunday, October 6th, at her home near San Antonio, Texas. The photo on the left is an image of her on that day wearing a dark dress and tan heels. Police say she hasn't been to work or checked on her children, 2 of them, since. An arrest warrant was obtained by KSAT News, and it states that a neighbor heard that Suzanne and her husband Brad argued on Sunday. And this neighbor was very detailed with his account of this. He says he actually witnessed a physical altercation. He told police that Suzanne was trying to get away from her husband. About an hour later, he says Brad Simpson left the house in his vehicle and then returned an hour or 2 after that. Monday, nobody picked up the kids from school, so staff called the husband. Police said that the Simpsons' children told parents that told the school that the parents were fighting and that dad assaulted mom and took her cell phone away. Brad Simpson now in jail on charges of assaulting his family member. It was assault causing bodily injury or an unlawful restraint. And authorities say he is being, quote, uncooperative. So we're asking the question, will the arrest help lead to some answers as to what happened to Suzanne? Let's talk about it. Joining us now, State Attorney in Palm Beach, Florida, Dave Ehrenberg, retired NYPD Detective Mike Alcazar, and still with us, criminal defense attorney, former prosecutor David Bruno. Good morning, gentlemen. Let's start, Mike, from a law enforcement perspective here. When you have an uncooperative person, as we have, they've said it publicly, it changes the game, I would think. And they've gone public saying, this guy's uncooperative. Have you seen this vehicle? Have you seen these clothes, this woman? Is that the right move here to try to, because it seems as though they are really at a loss as to where this woman is?
Yeah, when you have a missing person case like this that's highly suspect, a good rule is to treat it like it's a homicide. You don't have to tell the families or victims or witnesses that you're treating it like a homicide, but it's a good idea to start that way. You have to process physical evidence that you may recover so that you don't lose it. Time is of the essence. Any kind of digital footprint, his phone calls. Recently, we've seen in cases of missings and homicides that people do Google searches of gotta dispose of bodies. Criminals aren't very smart. So that's a good way to start. Social media postings, victimology. What's the history with the family? And of course, interview witnesses and, any kind of information that can help solve the case.
Dave, what goes into the thought process from a prosecutor standpoint and in terms of arresting him? I mean, there's 2 different, Dave Ehrenberg. Would you, as you look at it, you could either do one of 2 things, right? You can turn the screws by putting him in a jail cell, or you could sort of turn the screws by just letting him float around as everybody's watching him, and you can also watch him interact with other people. You know, you can bug his house and his phones and all that. What would be the thought process, which they did here, is put him in a jail cell as they wait for answers?
Ted, he's clearly the top suspect here, and they want to prevent him from fleeing, and that's one reason why they were able to lock him up for a lesser charge. The question is, how long can they keep him behind bars? Some judges will not allow you to keep these guys behind bars unless you charge them with the crime of murder, something more serious than the domestic violence he's being charged with right now. So the prosecutors clearly have their eyes on this guy, and they're trying to develop a case against this guy. But unlike police, prosecutors generally will not file charges against someone unless they can have enough evidence to find to get a jury to find them guilty beyond a reasonable doubt. The standard for police is probable cause. That's a low standard. But when it comes to file charges as a prosecutor, you want to have enough evidence that you can charge beyond a reasonable doubt, because once you charge, then the clock starts ticking. So he'll be charged if they have enough evidence with murder, but only then, because if you do it too soon, that clock starts ticking and you could lose the whole case.
David Bruno, if you're representing him, what are you telling him? Do you still continue to be uncooperative? What would be your advice?
Sure, it's rule number one of criminal defense is remain silent, and I have a problem with the characterization of being uncooperative, you know, because the Fifth Amendment applies to the innocent and the guilty. If that's the case, because he's invoked his right to remain silent, which the Constitution offers to everybody, that is an unfair characterization in the public opinion. With that being said, look, there's
you can push back a little there, David. It's unfair in the legal world, but it's fair in the layman's world, is it not? That the neighbor, this guy doesn't seem to care about his missing wife, and he's got 2 kids without a mom. Where is she? And if he's not helping. So I get what you're saying. Legally, it's the right way to go, but public opinion is, dude, where's the wife?
Yeah, well, prosecutors, they're ethically responsible for their statements to the public. And look, there's 2 charges, and the bail set on the 2 charges is $2 million, $1 million on each. So obviously they have some pretty good evidence to think that this is the guy. They're looking for help because there's no cell phone of the victim. They got to find the victim's phone, obviously. Where's the GPS on where it was? Where was the movement on that? And this neighbor that has evidence about watching a physical altercation and restraint is the starting point for the investigation. So I know that he's being uncooperative in a sense, but when somebody has committed some sort of offense or crime, any defense attorney would tell them to remain silent because it's constitutional right.
Mike, the window here is fairly limited in terms of hiding a body. If, let's say, assume that the unthinkable has happened and that he has killed her, that she didn't just flee and is now hiding out somewhere, which is what people are hoping. But let's say he did kill her. He's got about a 4, when you factor in his coming and going through the neighbor, it's a matter of hours. Are you confident that this will be solved in the near future?
I mean, we always hope that we can solve it. You know, we're going to have to do our due diligence and canvass for video, process the crime scene, maybe get some help from outside agencies if it's a smaller agency, get the FBI involved so that, yeah, you're right, time is the essence, and we have to do this as quick as possible. Professionally, it's not looking good that this woman hasn't been recovered, and I would process it right now as if it was a homicide.
Dave Ehrenberg, let's say she's never found. There's a lot that makes people believe that the husband did. No body prosecutions are a very difficult endeavor, but it absolutely can be done.
Correct. You don't need a body, although it's very helpful for prosecutors, but there's already a lot of circumstantial evidence here, and investigators will collect more. It's just something that we have to do because you want to do justice for the family. And this is an area where juries get it. Juries understand the motive when it's a internal domestic family dispute. It's not like you have to explain some complex financial scheme. This could be motivated by the fact that you had a domestic violence incident that escalated into a murder, and it's something that everyone can understand. So just because they don't have a body doesn't mean it's case over for the prosecutors.
Yeah, absolutely. And we will see, and hopefully there are answers sooner than later. We'll continue to monitor everything coming out of San Antonio, Texas.
And we'll continue to monitor that as well. So stick and stay. We'll find out exactly what will happen in this case, and exactly what happened to Suzanne Simpson when we get more information on it. But there is one other thing that that we need to know if this case happens to go to trial. Well, it hasn't even gone to court yet. Yeah, but they did say that the police have shared the license plate of Bryan Simpson's GMC truck in the hopes of getting more information. That license plate number, if I'm looking at it correctly, is Texas license plate MWD 7050. MWD 7050. There's more. It said while Villegas refused to give any more details about the evidence collected so far in the case, he did say that the GMC truck in their possession, as well as 2 articles, he said were found in the woods near the couple's home. So we have to still wait and see, and maybe we'll keep digging to find out what happened to Suzanne Simpson, and how much does Brad Simpson know about it. All right. Okay. All right, guys, you ready? Here we go again. This story contains a trigger warning. There was a woman found deceased in a luggage bag near Las Vegas airport. Viewer discretion is advised. Won't go to the video for this one. Police are investigating the suspicious death of a woman whose body was found inside a luggage bag near an apartment complex late last week. Officers were called to an area near Harry Reid International Airport at approximately 4:19 a.m. on October 3rd after receiving a tip of a possible deceased person, according to Las Vegas Metro Police Department. Upon arrival, they discovered the body of a female inside the luggage. Medical personnel responded and confirmed the woman was deceased. The Clark County Coroner's Office identified the victim as 46-year-old Kristen Avalar. While no suspects have been named in Avalar's death, police are treating it as a homicide. Due to the suspicious nature of the death, the LVMPD homicide section responded and took over the investigation. Police said this in a press release along with a YouTube video showing photos of the victim. Detectives are now seeking the public's help in gathering information about Avalar's whereabouts prior to her death. They are asking anyone who knew her or who may have seen her in the days leading up to the incident to contact the LVMPD homicide section at area code 702-828-3521 or contact them by email at homicide@lvmpd.com. Again, that number is 702-828-3521, or the email address homicide@lvmpd.com. Anonymous tips can also be submitted to Crime Stoppers by phone at area code 702-385-5555, or go online at www.crimestoppersofnv.com. Once again, the Crime Stoppers number is 702-385-5555, or you can submit your tip online at www.crimestoppersofnv.com. Next up, we are getting ourselves prepared for beginning of the testimony in the Tyler in landfill murder trial, state of Georgia versus Leilani Simon. Now, jury selection has already begun in this case. We're gonna be soon starting the trial. A Georgia woman accused of murdering her toddler's son is on trial 2 years after his remains were found in a landfill. On October 5th, 2022, Leilani Simon called to report that Quentin Simon was missing. She told a 911 dispatcher that their front door was open and Quentin must have been abducted. For weeks, investigators searched for the boy. His remains were discovered on November 18th. According to an indictment filed in the case, prosecutors believe Leilani killed Quentin on the morning of October 5th by assaulting him with an unknown object before leaving his body in a dumpster outside of a trailer park near her home. In the days and weeks after reporting her son's disappearance, Leilani gave a number of interviews to the police and FBI, which her attorneys have fought to keep from being entered into evidence at trial. Leilani is standing trial on 19 charges, including murder, concealing a death, falsely reporting a crime, and 14 counts of lying to investigators. Her trial is scheduled to begin tomorrow, October 14th. And I will be covering that. Next up, one of the most sickening stories I have ever ran across. So sickening, I had to put a trigger warning on it. Now, this was the story I was referring to. And as you can see, I just scroll the trigger warning right across the bottom of your screen. So I'm going ahead and giving you the heads up now. If you have weak constitutions, mute this story. Please mute this story. I don't want your mental health harmed. I don't want your emotional health harmed. But somehow, if some way you can handle this, then by all means, viewer discretion is strongly advised. Okay, like the title of this edition, you have been warned. Investigators arrested a woman after they say they found the body of her dismembered mother outside the home they shared in Kentucky. Police said they were called to a home in Robertson County after someone who was there to work on Trudy Field's property told them she didn't answer the door, then saw what he thought was her dismembered body lying in the grass near a blood-stained mattress. Kentucky State Police Trooper David Jones said units responded and found a dead female in the backyard. Tried to make contact with somebody at the house. The house was locked up. They backed up, set up a perimeter. We had other units respond. Ended up getting a search warrant for the residence. According to a citation, the worker told police he saw Trudy Fields alive the day before with her 32-year-old daughter, Toralina Fields. He said Toralina was casting spells on them and being confrontational. Due to the circumstances, investigators say they called in a special response team and entered the house Wednesday night. Our special response team responded to serve the search warrant because of the circumstances surrounding the body and not knowing what was in the property in the house. They executed the search warrant, Jones said. According to the citation, the inside of the home was a scene of horror. A search of the home found multiple body parts cooked inside a stainless steel pot inside the oven. Wow. In addition, investigators said Toralina appeared to have blood on her face, hands, and clothes, and wouldn't leave the home until they used tear gas on her. Toralina will be transported to the Bourbon County Detention Center upon release from the hospital. Toralina faces multiple charges, including obstructing governmental operations, tampering with physical evidence, and abuse of a corpse, but could face more charges as the case develops. Now, normally, when I hear the phrase "House of Horrors," whenever I hear the phrase "House of Horrors," it brings me to some kind of abuse that a child is enduring. This woman, 32 years of age, is accused of abuse of a corpse, dismembering her own mother, and cooking the body parts? Who does that? The last time I heard about a case almost similar to this was Taylor Shabiznis. But even she didn't take it that far. Ladies and gentlemen, I will give you more information on this case as I can get it, and if I can stomach it, because I literally lost it on not just the dismembering, but cooking the body parts in a stainless steel pot in the oven. You have got to be some kind of evil to do that. You gotta be. I have some sad news for one defendant. Amber Geiger, the former Texas police officer who shot and killed Botham Jean, mistaking his apartment for her own, has been denied her parole. We're gonna take you to Court TV for this breaking news story, and I'll come back and give you my commentary on the whole thing.
Welcome back. We have some breaking news to pass along. Amber Geiger, the former Dallas police officer convicted of murder, has been denied parole. Confirming that just a short time ago. She, of course, shot and killed Botham Jean in his apartment 6 years ago. We watched this one play out on Court TV. Jean's family said they did a phone interview with a parole board commissioner on Monday, but didn't expect the decision so soon. Geiger says she confused Jean's apartment for her own. When she came home from work, saw him inside of her, what she thought was her apartment. He was there eating ice cream on his couch, and she shot him to death, and then realized the mistake she'd made. She was sentenced to 10 years in prison. She will not be eligible for parole now again until 2026. So Amber Geiger will remain in prison until at least 2026 after this decision by the parole board.
You heard it here first. Amber Geiger will not be eligible for parole again until 2026. And what still bugs me to this day, and which is where I believe that she should have been granted parole. She's one of the first criminal defendants that I've seen during the 2+ years that I've been covering true crime that has actually shown some kind of remorse for what she did. I mean, first of all, she actually admitted that she did it, but she also had mentioned 19 times over that she thought she was in her apartment. She said it 19 times. I thought this was my apartment. I thought this was my apartment. And with each frantic time that she said those words, it's like, oh my God, what did I do? I just shot a man in his own apartment thinking it was my own. That's the first part that really rattled my core. The second part, long after she's been found guilty in the trial and victim impact statements, the brother of the victim not only forgave her, but gave her a hug. Asked the judge first and gave her a hug. The judge then passed her sentence and hugged her too. All I can say is that I really hope something can be done that will let Amber Geiger out of prison, and she can live her life. I can't totally say in peace, just because she's still gonna have that guilt hanging over her head. But she can live out whatever's left of her life. Yeah, will shock you guys. She's actually a convicted defendant that I'm actually rooting for. Alright, next up, I do with apology in advance. The last time I spoke of this woman, I called her a bully. I called her this, that, and everything else. Maybe she's going about things the wrong way. She may be going about things the wrong way, but I gotta give her credit. She's a bulldog when it comes to true crime. So, Bullhorn Betty, if you're watching this and I'm reporting on this, I apologize in advance, but I'm only reporting with the information that I'm getting. This is not a slight on you. In fact, what I'm going to do right now, I'm going to take this to Court TV. Kelly Craft is gonna talk about it, and then I'm gonna drop in my 2 cents.
Turning now to Tennessee, where a hearing took place on Thursday in the case of missing teen Sebastian Rogers. The 15-year-old was last seen at his mother's home in Tennessee back in February. Sebastian, who has autism, disappeared overnight, leaving his shoes behind. The search has gone national, with some YouTubers getting involved, including Andra Griffin, a.k.a. Bullhorn Betty. In July, Sebastian's mother, Katie Proudfoot, filed a protection order against Bullhorn Betty, accusing her of harassment. The following month, Bullhorn Betty was arrested for violating the restraining order. Yesterday, the judge granted a new protection order against Andra Griffin. Both Griffin and Sebastian's stepfather, Christopher Proudfoot, spoke during that hearing. Take a listen to some of their testimony.
After being arrested, you still saw fit to continue your advocacy with a voices meeting. Yes.
Sebastian matters to me a lot.
How much?
I'd like to find the answers. I'd like to bring him home, and I'd like to bring him home safely. And I hope the application that we do, along with other people like me, help aid in that effort.
When did you first come to Sumner County, Tennessee about the Sebastian Rogers case?
I think I arrived here, it was June 22nd, but it was in the evening, so it's just basically checking into a hotel and, resting because it was a long drive.
Okay. Then what did you do?
One of the main key factors of this case is that the child disappeared between midnight and 6 a.m. So one of the first things I wanted to do was preview the area at night to see what it looked like. I've never been here. I know nothing about this area. I know nothing about how dark it is outside or what certain lights are where. And the only way you can get that information is previewing it at the time of night that it allegedly happened. And as as being a investigative reporter, I do look into those. I look into factual information, whether things hold water or can be disproved.
So what did you do?
I got up, I took a stroll, and of course I have a dash cam in my car, so I just click it, and I basically...
Well, let me ask you this. Where were you staying?
She's in the middle of answering your question.
Pardon?
Finish.
Pardon?
Sure. So I was staying in Goodlettsville at a hotel. And so I was just, I have a dash cam, and so all I pretty much did is, I think it was less than 20 minutes, 25 minutes from the time I left my hotel to the time I got back. And I just drove through and got a nighttime view and looked at everything that we saw on the news, just to get a lay of the land. A lot of people were making a lot of allegations related to the video that was seen, and I wanted to see what the shadows meant, where the lights were, just a lay of the land, so to speak.
Please be very certain with your answer. Have you ever intentionally communicated to Christopher Proudfoot?
I do believe I did respond to him at some point in this.
You responded to this text?
Yes, sir.
How did you respond?
There was also some threats of violence toward me from a content creator named Ricky Don Smith. And I asked him, this is a person who's been on our channel multiple times, and I asked him if he could please stop her from threatening me.
Stop who from threatening?
Ricky Don Smith.
What are you afraid of from Andrew Griffin?
What am I directly afraid of, sir? Is that what you're asking?
Yes.
Well, when you make a video threatening that you want to bring a gun from another state to this state, directly in videos related to me, my wife, my family, that's a threat, plain and simple. She also said she was going to bring a machete, for the record. No, sir. No, sir.
Would you agree that what's seen and heard is I've heard?
I'm not an expert to make it.
Do you believe everything on the internet to be truthful?
Possibly. Maybe.
Further, Your Honor.
Questions? Yes, Your Honor. That Ms. Griffin never directly called you, texted you, correct? Besides exchange receipts.
Hasn't contacted me other than via.
Contacted you based off of
hundreds.
Is it possible to avoid the media circus that surrounds Ms. Griffin's conduct?
Absolutely not.
Okay. Personal phone number, by the way?
Yes. Yes, sir.
Do you have any other social media accounts?
I have accounts, sir, but that's
okay. But is there contact?
Yes, sir.
To be following, updating you on the latest developments throughout the day right here on Court TV.
Now that this case had went to court, there has been a ruling that Bullhorn Betty has been ordered to stop reporting on the family of a missing 15-year-old boy. Of the missing 15-year-old. Now I can say this with I can say this objectively. I believe that this is a good thing. That way, the focus can go right where it belongs. Put it on Sebastian. Keep his name out there. Keep his information out there. In the hopes that somebody knows something that will bring him home safe. Now, this is what I'm doing. I'm just going to drop some numbers in, because I'm not trying to pull the entire all the information out that I know of, but I have heard that the reward for information leading to finding Sebastian has now gone up to $125,000. So, if there is anyone out there, especially in the Tennessee area, if you have any information on the whereabouts of Sebastian Wayne Drake Rogers, please, whatever you do, anything, get in contact with just about anybody, but please don't hesitate. Call 911 immediately. Call the FBI's 24-hour tip line, 1-800-CALL-FBI, 1-800-225-5324. Call the Tennessee Bureau of Investigation at 1-800-TBI-FIND, 1-800-824-3463. You can also call the Sumner County Emergency Communications Center at 615-451-3838. 615-451-3838. You can also submit your tip online at tips.fbi.gov or a little more locally at tips2TBI at tbi.tn.gov. But again, like I said with the with Stephanie's case early at the top of this broadcast, whatever you do, if you see something, say something. That way, we can do something. Let's bring Sebastian home, and let's keep the focus on him so we can bring Sebastian home. Next story up, Morgan Geyser has filed a third request to be released from a psychiatric hospital. A Wisconsin woman accused of stabbing her classmate to please horror character Slender Man more than a decade ago asked the judge again Friday to release her from a psychiatric hospital. Morgan Geyser, who is now 22 years old, filed a petition with the Waukesha County Circuit Judge Michael Bowen, seeking her release from the Winnebago Mental Health Institute. The petition marks the third time in the last 2 years she has asked Bowen to let her out of the facility. She withdrew her first petition 2 months after filing it in 2022. Bowen denied her second request this past April, saying she remains a risk to the public. Geyser's attorney, Anthony Cotton, didn't immediately respond to email and telephone messages on Friday morning. Geyser and Anissa Weier were 12 years old in 2014 when they lured Peyton Leutner to a Waukesha park after a sleepover. Geyser stabbed Leutner 19 times while Weier egged her on. Leutner barely survived. The girls later told investigators they wanted to earn the right to be servants of the fictional Slender Man and that they feared he would harm their families if they didn't carry out the attack. Geyser pleaded guilty to first-degree intentional homicide and was sent to the Psychiatric Institute because of mental illness. Weier pleaded guilty to attempted second-degree intentional homicide and was also sent to the psychiatric center. She was granted a release in 2021 to live with her father and was ordered to wear a GPS monitor. So the request is in, and I'll be sure to keep track as to whether she'll be granted the release or will another judge keep her there to say that she remains a potential risk to the community. Alright, and this is our last story of the evening, and wouldn't you know it, this one is labeled with a trigger warning. One second. There we go. All right. A Michigan woman is accused of beating her husband back in 2007, setting him on fire, setting their house on fire, and running him over with their van, and she's set to be retried next March. Linda Sturmer was initially sentenced to life without parole in 2010, but her conviction was overturned in 2018 after her attorney successfully argued that she did not receive a fair trial. Sturmer and her defense attorney appeared at a status conference hearing today via Zoom. By today I mean that was August 11th, which is Friday, while the judge and prosecutors were present in the courtroom. According to prosecutors, Sturmer hit her husband, Todd Sturmer, with an object in his sleep on the night of January 7, 2007, before setting the blaze at their Lawrence, Michigan home. Todd managed to run out of the front door with his upper body engulfed in flames before Linda allegedly ran him over. We're gonna take you right into that courtroom for that hearing, courtesy of Court TV, your front row seat to justice.
The court calls the case of People versus Linda, case Sturmer 0916654. Counsel, state your appearances for the record, please.
Susan Ackerman and Jay Blair, Your Honor.
Wolf Mueller for the defendant, Your Honor.
Skip is on, and so is Linda. I'm not sure. Yes, she's going to be third chair.
Third chair. Okay. Ms. Neeks, are you appearing on this as well? I think you're muted. No, I can't hear her, no.
This is Linda Sturmer.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Neeks, I think is. Ms. Neeks, can you say?
Your Honor, she's going to be assisting us.
Okay. Okay, and you said Skip is on as well?
Yeah. I just saw Skip's phone here.
Okay, there we go. I've got note of him. Counsel, we're here, I think, just to check on the status of things and in preparation for the for sure trial date in March. Any information, anyone, or anything you want to place on the record?
I think Skip can advise the court if he's there.
Staff is saying it's showing he's connected and he's not muted, and it shows his camera is on.
I can advise the court. Skip and I spoke this morning, and fortunately, he's doing much better apparently after. Here you can tell the court.
Okay. Good afternoon, Mr. Kelly. Did you have an update for the court? Oh, I think you're muted. No. Okay.
Well, I can tell you he's feeling much better from my conversation with him. Okay. He just completed some treatment, so.
Okay.
I think we're on track, Your Honor.
Okay. And again, I think we're going to stay on track. Hopefully, you'll have all the lawyers you need, but I plan to stay on track for the trial in March. So.
Okay.
Anything else, counsel?
I just want to confirm the trial date. We're going to be starting on the 25th, so that would be jury selection. Is that correct? And then we would have witnesses starting the 26th of March. I think that's what we had done previously when we had the September dates.
Yeah.
We're going to be getting out subpoenas next week, so I just want to be able to start coordinating with all the witnesses again.
Yeah, that'll work. We'll start, we'll do jury selection on the 25th, everyone, of March. And then we'll start with, and then if we can get to openings, we'll do that. And then witnesses will begin on the 26th.
Thank you, Your Honor. And then I did have a request from the Public Defender's Office then to make sure that Attorney Neves was getting the discovery. And so everything, it's so voluminous. I think it would be best if Ms. Neves could get that from defense counsel. And then if there's anything that is missing, I can fill in some pieces, but I just don't, I don't know. It would take us quite a bit to then compile everything again and provide it again. And especially with how we've then gone back and forth over the last couple of years just with updates. So if that could occur, then it would just limit how much then my office needs to compile. I would be appreciated.
No, we'll take care of all that, Your Honor.
You'll all direct that you and Mr. Kelly provide documents to the Public Defender's Office. So we have retained counsel and indigent counsel, basically. Okay.
I think, Skip, can you hear us?
We can't hear him.
Well, the representative from the Public Defender's Office will be assisting us, Your Honor.
Okay. Okay, and so the burden will be on the defense team to provide assistance with the materials to the Public Defender's Office who's assisting.
Correct.
And we have final pre-trial on March 7th.
March 7th, thank you, Your Honor.
Okay, anything else, anyone? I'm glad to hear that you're doing better, Mr. Kelly. We can't hear you, but you look good, so.
Handsome as always.
Okay, anything else, prosecutor?
No, Your Honor, thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
So according to prosecutors, Sturmer hit her husband, Todd, with an object on January 7th of 07 before setting ablaze at their Lawrence, Michigan home. Todd managed to run out the front door with his upper body engulfed in flames before Linda allegedly ran him over. According to documents obtained by Court TV, Todd was determined to have died from a combination of blunt force injuries and thermal injuries. He had sustained 4 lacerations to the scalp and 2 rib fractures before being burned. Investigators concluded that Todd had been run over when they discovered his blood on the van's bumper. At a 2010 trial, Linda was convicted of first-degree premeditated murder and felony murder. However, she maintained she was in the basement doing laundry when the fire broke out. Linda spent nearly 9 years in prison before Judge Arthur J. Tarnow issued a conditional writ of habeas corpus and ordered release on a $10,000 bond. A writ of habeas corpus is an order that places the burden of proof on those detaining a person in order to justify their detention. It essentially determines whether it's valid to hold someone in custody. Habeas corpus literally translates to "you should have the body." Linda's current lawyer's argument that her previous attorney was ineffective was successful because he failed to protect her when the prosecutor violated rules regarding evidence. In other words, there was evidence at her trial that her attorney should have challenged, but didn't. A final pre-trial hearing is scheduled for March 7th, with jury selection set to begin March 26th, 2025. And, of course, we will be covering that when that trial gets underway. So that's it. That's a wrap. Believe it or not, I have no last rites to give this week. I have no last rites to give, but I do want to thank you all for joining me here this evening. Wow. I'm just glad I didn't have to set that alarm back off again. All right, let's close this thing out. If you liked everything you saw this evening, or everything you heard, I want you to just do the simple thing: like, share this video, subscribe to the channel, drop me a comment, and it's a free way to support the channel. And I'd love to hear from you. If you want to tip me, I got 3 ways for you to do it. First, on PayPal, paypal.com, PayPal me/EKB316. On Cash App, $EKB316. Venmo, EB, The Last Outlaw. Nothing obligated, but it's always appreciated. If you want to get a hold of me, I'm all over social media. Hit me up at Bethea'S Byte Reloaded on Facebook. At EKB316 on X, formerly known as Twitter. That's EKB in all caps. Right here on YouTube at Bethea'S Byte Reloaded. On Instagram at EKB316. This time it's lowercase EKB316. On TikTok at King of Hearts 316 2021. Or you can email me at kingofhearts316_09 at outlook.com. Alright, so remember the where you are here at the drama-free true crime destination. This is your home for true crime news without the drama, where your opinions matter, where lively debates are encouraged, where your voice is heard, and above all else, it's justice served. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Bethea'S Byte. And trigger warnings and all, it's reloaded. Thank you all so much for joining me. I'm Ernest Bethea, The Last Outlaw. I hope you have a great rest of your Sunday, early Monday morning, and I look forward to seeing you again right here. Until next time, you know what to do. Bite this.
Thanks for watching and joining me here at the drama-free true crime destination. Be sure to like, share, subscribe to the channel, and drop me a comment on this video. Also, be sure to follow Bethea'S Byte Reloaded all over social media. This is Bethea'S Byte, and it's reloaded.